The silent vanguard. The stars dimmed as the void-born fleet advanced through the Orion Arm. Not by natural means, but because their ships, vast geometric structures of obsidian composite, absorbed light itself. For 3 decades they had moved methodically through the galactic sector, their pattern unwavering. Arrive, consume, advance. 47 star systems had fallen, their planets stripped of resources and their civilizations erased from existence. The Galactic Concord's diplomatic overtures went unanswered. Their military responses were crushed with mechanical efficiency. Captain Nora Chen stood on the observation deck of Arcturus Station, watching the tactical hologram with eyes that hadn't known proper sleep in 72 hours. The simulation showed the void-born advance, a perfect, inexorable wave of destruction approaching human space. "They'll reach the colonies within 6 weeks," said Commander Jackson, her XO, voice tight with controlled fear. "Proxima Centauri first, then." "I know the projections," Nora cut him off, pressing her palm against the cold glass of the viewport. Beyond it, Earth's orbital shipyards blazed with activity, 3 shifts working around the clock. At the center of the industrial ballet hung her ship, the UES Hyperion. Its hull gleamed silver under the work lights, unlike any vessel humanity had constructed before. Sleeker than standard military designs, with unconventional geometry that seemed to shift subtly depending on the viewing angle. Beneath its skin lay experimental systems that had existed only in theoretical physics papers 18 months ago. "Director Kaminsky wants to see you," Jackson said, offering her a steaming mug of coffee. "Something about the final weapons integration." "When do they not want to see me?" Nora sighed, accepting the coffee gratefully. "You'd think attaching experimental weaponry to an experimental ship with an experimental drive system would be straightforward." Jackson's rare smile flickered across his face, simple as quantum entanglement. The Hyperion project had consumed Nora's life for the past year. Earth's desperate gamble. One ship that might exploit the only potential weakness intelligence had identified in the seemingly perfect void-born war machine. Not their technology, which was centuries beyond humanity's, nor their numbers, which were vast, but their perfect predictability. The void-born moved like a single organism. Each ship, each weapon placement, each tactical maneuver executed with flawless coordination. Intelligence analysts hypothesized some form of collective consciousness, operating with computational perfection. They never improvised, never showed creativity. They didn't need to. Their standard tactics had proven sufficient against every adversary they'd encountered. Until now, Nora hoped. The integration lab hummed with tension and equipment. Dr. Eliza Kaminsky, brilliant, impatient, and perpetually disheveled, barely looked up when Nora entered. "Good, you're here," she said, hands dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. "The quantum disruptors are functioning, but the targeting systems are giving us headaches." "Define headaches," Nora replied, circling the central testing apparatus. "They work perfectly against stationary objects," Kaminsky explained, pushing her glasses up her nose. "But the computational load for tracking moving targets is problematic." "Define problematic." "The targeting calculations take approximately 7 seconds to complete." Nora felt her stomach drop. 7 seconds is an eternity in combat. Hence, headache. Kaminsky collapsed into her chair. "We're trying to calculate quantum state disruption on the fly. Nobody's ever done this before. How long to fix it? 3 weeks, minimum. Maybe never." Nora walked to the observation window overlooking the main hangar. Engineers swarmed over the Hyperion's open panels like ants tending their queen. 3 weeks they didn't have. "What if we don't track them at all?" she asked. Kaminsky frowned. "I don't follow." "The void-born move in perfect, predictable patterns, right? Their formations never deviate. So what if instead of tracking their movements in real time, we calculate where they'll be? Pre-targeting based on behavioral algorithms," Kaminsky said slowly, then faster as the idea took hold. "Actually, that might work. Their patterns are so consistent that we cold. project their movements, and time our shots accordingly. Nora nodded, like shooting at where a target will be, not where it is. That's brilliant, Captain, Kaminsky said, already typing furiously. We'll need fleet data on their standard formation movements. I'll have Jackson send everything we've got, Nora promised. How soon can you implement this approach? 4 days. Maybe 3 if nobody on my team sleeps. Then don't let me keep you, Nora said, already moving toward the door, energy renewed. 4 days. They could do this. The Voidborn arrived at Proxima Centauri with mathematical precision, exactly when projections indicated they would. The Colonial Defense Force, evacuated of civilians days earlier, engaged in a fighting retreat, gathering crucial combat data with each exchange before withdrawing through predetermined jump points. Aboard the Hyperion, now stationed at the edge of the Sol system, Nora watched the incoming feeds with her senior staff. The Voidborn's black ships moved in their signature hexagonal formations, absorbing or deflecting conventional weapons with contemptuous ease. The Defense Force is performing admirably, said Lieutenant Commander Takeda, tactical officer, his face illuminated by the data streams. Casualty rates are within acceptable parameters. No casualties are acceptable, Nora replied quietly. But they're buying us vital intelligence with their lives. Let's ensure it's worth the cost. The bridge of the Hyperion barely resembled those of standard Earth vessels. Conventional control stations were supplemented by neural interface cradles, allowing officers to connect directly with the ship's systems. The walls, floor, and ceiling formed one continuous smart surface that could display information anywhere. At the center, Nora's command chair sat atop a raised dais, surrounded by holographic displays. "Final systems check," she ordered. The crew responded with practiced efficiency, voices overlapping as they verified the experimental systems that made Hyperion unique. Quantum disruptors online, pre-targeting algorithms loaded, phantom drives spooled and ready, neural network operating at optimal parameters, shield harmonics synchronized. Nora took a deep breath. Communications, send final status report to Fleet Command. We're deploying as ordered. Commander Jackson stepped closer to her chair. The crew is ready, Captain. There's not a person aboard who doesn't understand what's at stake. She nodded gratefully. The Hyperion carried 247 souls, a minimal crew for a vessel its size, due to extensive automation. 247 volunteers who knew this mission might well be one way. "Navigation," she said, her voice steady. "Set course for the Alpha Centauri approach vector. The Voidborn will reach that waypoint in approximately 12 hours based on their current speed. Course laid in, Captain. Phantom drive engaging in 3, 2, 1. The stars on the view screen stretched impossibly, then twisted in ways human eyes weren't meant to process. Several crew members averted their gaze as the Hyperion slipped sideways through space-time, tunneling through dimensions theoretical physics had only recently confirmed existed. They were committed now. Humanity's best hope, perhaps its only hope, was in motion. The journey took moments or hours. The phantom drive made conventional time measurement meaningless. When they emerged, the sensors immediately detected the Voidborn armada approaching from the remnants of Proxima Centauri's outer defense perimeter. Multiple contacts, Takeda reported, his voice tight. 87 capital ships, hundreds of smaller craft, all moving in standard assault formation. "They haven't detected us yet," added Lieutenant Park from the sensor station. The Phantom drive transition left minimal space-time disturbance, and our passive stealth systems are holding. "Good," Nora said, studying the tactical display. "Take us to position Alpha. Minimal power, cold running. Let's see if our theory holds." The Hyperion glided silently through space, its advanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. They took up position along the projected path of the Voidborn fleet, directly in their way, but hidden. For 2 tense hours they waited. The bridge crew spoke in whispers, though sound couldn't travel through space. It seemed wrong, somehow, to speak loudly while hunting leviathans. "Contact approaching," Park finally said. "Lead elements of the Voidborn fleet will pass within optimal range in 3 minutes. Power up weapons, but keep all other systems minimal," Nora ordered. "Remember the simulations. We get one shot at surprising them before they adapt." The enormous black ships grew larger on the view screen, their surfaces seeming to devour light rather than reflect it. Moving with perfect coordination, they maintained their hexagonal formation, precisely as predicted. Tracking matches our algorithmic projections with 99.7% accuracy, Takeda reported with quiet amazement. "The targeting solution is locked." Nora felt the weight of history on her shoulders. If they failed here, Earth would likely fall within weeks. If they succeeded, well, success might simply buy them time rather than victory. But time was everything. "On my mark," she said, watching the distance counter tick down. "Fire quantum disruptors, full spread." The Hyperion shuddered as invisible energy beams lanced out toward the approaching Voidborn vessels. For a terrible moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to shiver around the lid Voidborn ship. Its perfect black surface rippled like water disturbed by a stone. Sections of hull simply vanished, not destroyed but removed from normal spacetime. The effect cascaded through the massive vessel, pieces of it blinking in and out of existence as quantum states collided and collapsed. "Direct hit," Takeda called out, voice rising with disbelief and hope. "Their structural integrity is compromised at the quantum level." 2 more vessels affected by proximity cascade. The Voidborn fleet's perfect formation faltered for the first time in recorded history. Ships adjusted position, moving to protect their damaged companions. A reaction no one had seen before. "They're adapting," Jackson warned. "And they've detected us." Nora leaned forward. "Now we see if the rest of our theories hold. Battle stations. Bring all systems to full power." As alarms sounded throughout the ship, the crew braced for the real test. They'd landed the first blow. But the Voidborn had destroyed entire civilizations without suffering significant losses. Until today. The counterattack, when it came, was swift and overwhelming. Energy beams of unknown composition stabbed toward the Hyperion from a dozen vessels simultaneously. "Incoming fire," Takeda warned. "Impact in 3 seconds." "Engage dynamic shield harmonics," Nora ordered calmly. The Hyperion's defensive systems, another experimental technology, shifted frequency and phase continuously, adapting to the enemy weapons even as they struck. The ship rocked violently, but held together. "Shields at 78%, reported Lieutenant Choi from engineering. "The harmonic adaptation is working, but we can't take sustained fire like this." "We don't need to," Nora replied. "Navigation. Execute evasion pattern Delta. Tactical. Target the second formation with quantum disruptors." The Hyperion danced through space with agility that belied its size, exploiting gaps in the Voidborn attack pattern. More quantum disruptor beams lashed out, causing 2 more enemy vessels to distort and partially disappear from normal space. For the first time, the perfect synchronization of the Voidborn fleet showed cracks. Their responses remained coordinated but seemed delayed, as if requiring additional processing time. "Their hive mind, or whatever it is, it's struggling to compute responses to our attack method," Takeda observed. "They've never encountered quantum state disruption before." "Press the advantage," Nora ordered. "Continue evasive maneuvers. Target their command node." The battle intensified as the Hyperion weaved through the massive Voidborn formation, striking key vessels before withdrawing. It wasn't a battle they could win through attrition. The enemy simply had too many ships. But that wasn't the mission. "Communications," Nora called. "Transmit all sensor data and battle telemetry back to Fleet Command. Make sure they're getting everything we're seeing." Jackson looked at her questioningly. "Captain, we're proving the concept, Commander," she explained, voice low. "Even if we don't make it back, Earth needs to know this works. The Voidborn were learning, their attacks becoming more precise, more coordinated. The Hyperion rocked with increasing violence as more hits broke through their defensive measures. Shields at 42%, Choi reported. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Automated systems containing damage. Nora studied the tactical display. They'd destroyed or disabled 6 enemy capital ships, an unprecedented achievement. But dozens more remained, and their attacks were growing more effective with each exchange. They're adapting to our shield harmonics, Takeda warned. Penetration rate increasing. A tremendous impact threw several crew members from their stations. Overhead lights flickered and emergency systems activated. Direct hit to engineering section, Choi called out. Phantom drive damaged. We've lost FTL capability. Nora's mind raced through options. Without FTL, they couldn't escape back to Earth. The Hyperion was powerful, but not powerful enough to defeat an entire fleet. Unless... Lieutenant Park, what's the status of the quantum disruptors? Functional, Captain, but power reserves are down to 34%. And if we redirected all non-essential power, including life support reserves, Park's fingers flew across his console. That would give us enough for one more full-powered volley. Maybe 2. Nora nodded. Tactical, target their largest vessel, the one we believe is their command node. Navigation, plot a direct course. Jackson stepped closer. Captain, you're not suggesting. I am, Commander. Nora met his eyes. We've proven the quantum disruptors work. Now we need to buy Earth time to build more ships with this technology. She stood, addressing the entire bridge. I won't order this. Every crew member has the right to evacuate via escape pods. No judgment, no record. Those pods might be recovered by our forces later. No one moved. Very well, she said, pride in her voice. Helm, take us in. Maximum speed. The Hyperion surged forward, directly toward the massive command vessel at the center of the Voidborn formation. Enemy fire intensified, raking across their hull. Divert all power to forward shields and engines, Nora ordered. Everything else, including life support, into the quantum disruptors. Prepare to fire on my mark. The ship groaned around them as systems strained beyond safety parameters. Warning lights flashed on every console. 5,000 kilometers to target, called the navigator. 4,000, 3,000. Enemy targeting solutions are locked on us, Takeda reported. Multiple weapons charging. 2,000 kilometers. They're attempting to evade, but we're matching course. The massive black shape of the Voidborn command vessel filled their view screen now, its surface absorbing light like a hole in reality. 1,000 kilometers. Point-blank range, Captain. Nora took one last look at her crew. Determined faces illuminated by emergency lighting and the glow of their stations. Whatever happened next, they had already changed the course of the war. Humanity now had hope. Fire quantum disruptors. Full power. Defiance rising. Lieutenant General Maya Okonkwo stood before the gathered fleet commanders, her dark uniform adorned with the single gold star that had become humanity's symbol of resistance. On the massive display behind her, tactical data from the Hyperion's final battle played in vivid detail. The sacrifice of Captain Chen and her crew confirmed what we had only theorized, she said, her voice carrying through the underground war room beneath the lunar surface. The Voidborn consciousness can be disrupted at the quantum level, and more importantly, their perfect coordination falters when forced to process novel situations. Admiral Takahashi, commander of the Pacific Fleet, leaned forward. How many ships can we equip with these quantum disruptors? 17 within the next 2 weeks, Okonkwo replied. Another 30 by month's end. But the Hyperion gave us something even more valuable than technology. She gestured, and the display shifted to show the aftermath of the battle, the Voidborn fleet regrouping, but in disarray. Their previously perfect formations now showed asymmetry, compensation for damaged vessels. time, she continued. The destruction of their command node has thrown their entire operation into temporary disarray. They've paused their advance to reassess. For how long? Asked General Santiago of the South American Defense Force. Intelligence estimates 3 weeks, perhaps a month. They're adapting, learning, but it requires consensus across their collective consciousness. And Captain Chen's attack cost them more than ships. It fragmented their computational harmony. The room buzzed with cautious optimism, the first many had felt since the Voidborn had appeared on long-range sensors months ago. Okonkwo let it flow for a moment before raising her hand for silence. But make no mistake, she continued gravely, they will return, stronger and adapted to our quantum disruption technology. Which is why we need more than just new weapons. We need a new way of fighting. Lieutenant Marcus Way crouched behind the twisted remnants of what had once been a standard cargo hauler, pulse rifle clutched to his chest. Around him, the remains of New Mars colony smoldered under the purple-tinged sky of Proxima Centauri. His squad, what remained of it, waited silently for his signal. Drones report 6 Voidborn ground units moving east along the main thoroughfare, whispered Sergeant Riley through their tactical net. Standard sweep formation. We nodded, though no one could see it through his combat helmet. Just like the simulations, he replied. Let's see if the eggheads got this right. The Voidborn ground forces differed from their ships in appearance, but not in nature. Sleek, black exoskeletons housing a portion of their collective consciousness, moving with eerie synchronization. They didn't walk so much as flow across the landscape, each unit aware of the other's positions with perfect precision. Wei raised his hand, counting down with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. Now, he shouted, tapping his wrist control. Varied transmitters activated across the ruined colony, flooding the area with rapidly modulating quantum signals, a smaller version of the disruption technology that had proven effective in space. The effect was immediate. The Voidborn units froze momentarily, their fluid coordination suddenly jagged and uncertain. Fire, Wei ordered. His squad emerged from multiple hiding spots, pulse rifles targeting the confused alien units. Conventional weapons had proven minimally effective against the Voidborn, but the quantum disruption field temporarily rendered their defenses vulnerable. The firefight was brief but intense. When it ended, all 6 Voidborn units lay inert among the rubble. Confirm neutralization, Wei ordered, approaching cautiously. Corporal Zhang passed a sensor wand over the fallen units. Complete neural disruption, she reported. The quantum field severed their connection to the collective. Without it, the biological components can't function. Package 2 for transport back to labs, Wei directed. Standard containment protocols. As his squad secured the area, Wei gazed up at the sky. Somewhere up there, the full Voidborn fleet was regrouping, adapting to humanity's unexpected resistance. The ground victories were encouraging, but the real battle would be fought in space. Every day they delayed the Voidborn advance was another day for Earth's shipyards to produce vessels equipped with the new technology. Another day for humanity's brightest minds to find more weaknesses in the seemingly invincible enemy. Dr. Eliza Kaminsky hadn't slept properly in days. The temporary laboratory constructed within Olympus Mons on Mars buzzed with activity around the clock as scientists studied captured Voidborn technology. Her specific focus, the quantum communications that allowed their collective consciousness to function, had yielded promising results. They're not truly a hive mind, she explained to General Okonkwo, who had made the dangerous journey from Luna for this briefing. It's more like a quantum neural network. Each unit, whether ship or ground force, contains processors entangled at the quantum level. Meaning, Okonkwo prompted. Meaning they don't just communicate, they compute as a single distributed system. It's why they're so coordinated, so efficient. Kaminsky guided the general to a secure containment chamber where Voidborn components floated in a specialized field. And our disruption technology. It works by introducing quantum noise, essentially static, into their entanglement network. But they're already developing countermeasures. We've detected attempts to establish redundant entanglement pathways in recently encountered units. Okonkwo frowned. So our advantage is temporary. Yes and no, Kaminsky replied, picking up a datavad. They adapt collectively, but that adaptation requires consensus. And there's something strange about how they process novel situations. She displayed combat telemetry from recent engagements. See these response patterns. When we do something unexpected, something they haven't encountered before, their reaction time increases exponentially. It's as if their collective decision-making bogs down when faced with true novelty. Because they have to reach consensus across billions of quantum-linked processors, Okonkwo realized. Exactly. And humans, Kaminsky smiled for the first time in days. Humans are very good at being unpredictable. The Voidborn returned to human space 3 weeks after the Hyperion's last stand. Their formations subtly different. Their tactics evolved. But humanity was ready. The first fleet waited at the heliopause of the Sol system. 25 vessels of varying classes, all retrofitted with quantum disruptor technology. At their center, the UES Defiance, successor to the Hyperion, commanded by Admiral Jackson, formerly Captain Chen's executive officer. Multiple contacts emerging from FTL, reported his tactical officer. Voidborn signatures confirmed. 112 capital ships, support craft too numerous to count. Jackson nodded calmly. Just as intelligence predicted. Are they using the harmonic shielding we detected in the Proxima Centauri skirmishes? Affirmative, sir. Their outer vessels are projecting quantum-stabilized fields. Then our standard disruption protocols won't be effective, Jackson said. Implement Chaos Protocol Alpha. Throughout the fleet, tactical officers received the command with grim determination. The plan they were about to execute had been simulated extensively, but never tested in actual combat. It violated centuries of established military doctrine by essentially eliminating centralized command. Chaos Protocol Alpha acknowledged fleet-wide. Communications reported. All vessels ready. Jackson took a deep breath. Execute. The human fleet, previously arranged in traditional defensive formation, suddenly scattered in seemingly random directions. Each ship captain now operated under general mission parameters rather than specific tactical orders. Attack the Voidborn fleet, protect Earth, survive if possible, but with total freedom to determine how to accomplish those objectives. No coordination, no predictable patterns. Pure chaos. The Voidborn response was immediate and revealing. Their perfect formation hesitated, individual ships adjusting position slightly as if unsure how to respond to the unpredictable movements of the human vessels. Their quantum network is experiencing processing delays, reported the science officer. The collective can't reach consensus on optimal response patterns. Jackson allowed himself a tight smile. Press the advantage. All ships, commence individual attack runs. What followed was unlike any space battle in recorded history. Human vessels darted through the Voidborn formation, seemingly at random, quantum disruptors targeting unexpected points rather than obvious strategic locations. Some captains implemented complex evasion patterns. Others charged directly at enemy vessels before veering away at the last moment. A few shut down all systems briefly, drifting lifelessly before suddenly reactivating in the midst of enemy formations. No two human ships acted alike. No pattern emerged for the Voidborn to analyze and counter. The collective consciousness that had decimated 47 star systems found itself computationally overwhelmed, forced to process billions of potential responses to actions it had never encountered before. They're attempting to establish a new formation, Tactical reported, pulling back to create distance for analysis. Don't let them, Jackson ordered. All vessels maintain pressure. Keep changing attack vectors. Maximum unpredictability. For 6 hours, the battle raged across the outer reaches of the Sol system. Human casualties were significant. 8 vessels destroyed, 5 more severely damaged. But the Voidborn losses were unprecedented. 27 of their capital ships drifted powerless, their quantum networks disrupted beyond recovery. Dozens more showed signs of coordination failure. "Sir," communications called out, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the center of their formation. Some kind of buildup." Jackson frowned. "Analysis: unknown, sir, but consistent with potential FTL activation." As they watched, the remaining Voidborn fleet began to withdraw, ships moving to protect their damaged comrades as they retreated from the Sol system. "They're running," someone whispered on the bridge. "No," Jackson corrected, studying the tactical display. "They're regrouping, adapting. But they've never had to retreat before. This is new territory for them." A ragged cheer went up across the fleet as the last Voidborn ship disappeared into FTL. Humanity had won its first major victory against an enemy that had never known defeat. But Jackson knew better than to celebrate prematurely. "All vessels, begin recovery operations. Salvage what you can from the disabled Voidborn ships. We need every piece of their technology we can acquire." General Okonkwo stood before the United Earth Assembly 6 months later, her uniform now bearing 2 gold stars. Behind her, images of the ongoing war effort played across massive screens. "The Battle of Seoul marked a turning point," she explained to the assembled representatives. "Not because we defeated them. We didn't, not truly, but because we forced them to adapt to us rather than the other way around." She gestured, and the display showed the current state of the conflict, a stalemate along the edge of human space. The Voidborn continue to evolve their tactics, incorporating human unpredictability into their calculations. But in doing so, they've had to fundamentally change their approach to warfare. "And the cost?" asked the representative from the African Union, her face grave. "Significant," Okonkwo acknowledged. "We've lost 17 colonies and nearly 30% of our military capability. But we've established a defensive perimeter that's holding, and more importantly, we've begun to understand them." She nodded to Dr. Kaminsky, who stepped forward. "The Voidborn aren't invincible," Kaminsky said. "Their greatest strength, their collective consciousness, contains an inherent weakness. When forced to process too many novel situations simultaneously, their decision-making fragments. It's why our chaos protocol has been effective. But they're learning," Okonkwo added. "Each engagement makes them more adaptable, more capable of processing human unpredictability, which is why we need to escalate our approach." The proposal she outlined was audacious, a counter-invasion of Voidborn territory, not to defeat them militarily, that remained beyond humanity's capability, but to continually present their collective consciousness with novel situations it couldn't easily process. "We don't need to destroy them," she concluded. "We need to keep them off balance, force them to devote more and more computational resources to adaptation rather than conquest." The Assembly's approval was not unanimous, but it was sufficient. Within weeks, small strike forces of human vessels began targeting Voidborn supply lines and outposts, never engaging in prolonged battles, always presenting new tactical challenges before withdrawing. 3 years later, Captain Marcus Way stood on the bridge of the UES Intrepid, watching as his vessel approached the designated coordinates. Behind him, a fleet of 30 human warships maintained position, weapons hot but not yet targeting. Signal from the Voidborn flagship acknowledged. His communications officer reported with barely concealed amazement. "They're ready to receive our delegation." We nodded, still not quite believing the moment had arrived. After 5 years of bloody conflict across dozens of star systems, the unthinkable had happened. The Voidborn had requested negotiations. Not surrender, they remained formidable, perhaps still capable of eventual victory through attrition. But the cost of adapting to humanity's chaotic, unpredictable warfare had grown too high. Their expansion had not just stopped, it had reversed as they pulled resources back to process the computational challenges humans presented. Dr. Kaminsky, now advisor to the diplomatic court, joined Y on the bridge. "It's remarkable," she said quietly. "Their entire species evolved around perfect consensus. encountering minds that value individual thought, that thrive on chaos and improvisation. It's forcing them to evolve rapidly. Evolution or die? White replied, remembering the countless battles the friends lost. Same choice they gave everyone else. The shuttle carrying Earth's diplomatic team departed the Intrepid's hangar, heading toward the massive void-borne vessel that waited at the center of their formation. Its once perfect black surface now showed modifications, adaptations developed specifically to counter human tactics. Do you think it will last? Wei asked. This truce? Kaminsky considered before answering. I think they've learned something they never expected to. That homogeneity has weaknesses as well as strengths. Whether that leads to lasting peace or just a temporary cessation of hostilities, she shrugged. That may depend on how well we understand each other. Wei watched the shuttle disappear into the void-borne docking bay. Whatever happened next, humanity had achieved what had once seemed impossible. They had stood against the perfect enemy and proven that sometimes imperfection, creativity, unpredictability, individuality was the greatest strength of all. Not far from where they stood, a memorial plaque honored the crew of the Hyperion, who had given everything to buy Earth its fighting chance. At its center were inscribed Captain Nora Chen's final transmitted words before ramming the void-borne command ship. They may be perfect, but we are human.